All right. Give give y'all a couple minutes to join the party. You know what? Let's get on StreamYard right quick. All right, guys. I'm just gonna give started a bit early, so just gonna give people a couple minutes to just to join the live stream real quick. So I'm gonna be killing the feed on Facebook and whatnot as soon as I get the chance. So if you guys are joining in on Facebook or or something else, please make sure that you guys go over to the YouTube channel. I'm gonna go ahead and put that link in the comments on Facebook. So shit. Oh well, shit. I can't go live. All right, cool. All right, so guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so, guys. It's free. It doesn't cost you nothing. Hit a like, hit a subscribe. That genuine engagement, that's really really what we need as far as growing the channel. So that way it tells the YouTube world that you guys like what John V's doing and that it'll help push the channel up so we can start getting some good information out there. So get the headphones on. And I won't be too long, guys. I'm gonna be just kind of read over. So I'm actually came prepared for y'all. So that way it wouldn't be me rambling as much as it would be me actually giving you guys some good information here. So, all right. So the main question I get constantly is about is like, all right, hey, John, like you're doing combatives, like what's the best system to train in combatives, right? That's really what everybody's looking for. And I think that really happens, I think, for two reasons. The first reason I think is because um martial arts marketing have this idea of having like this, like there's some kind of secret answer out there that it's going to solve all problems that you're going to deal with. And I think when people really that people are on both sides, right? They think that the martial arts are going to solve the weapons problem, or the weapon is going to have to solve the fighting problem. Okay, so everybody's kind of looking for that immediately solve a problem, and I think that a lot of people are seeking that proverbial silver bullet in terms of like, if I just do the one thing, I'll be straight and I'll be taken care of and I won't have to worry about anything else. Okay. What I want you guys to think about is to look at fighting from the standpoint of tactics. Okay. um, when you start thinking about it, there is like, all right, so tactically, if I'm engaging somebody head on, right, me and you are like face to face and we're just throwing blows. Okay. You essentially have everything you need or all your tools. I have all my tools. So the best thing for me to do is to kind of at least, right, on a just surface level thing, just so we kind of think of tactically, right, as far as like achieving an outcome. If I attack you from an angle, right? If I pivot or something like that, and I attack you, essentially, you're here facing sideways and you're attacking me from here. That makes it harder for me because I have to reorient and then meet up with you in order to use all my tools, right? Now, when we think about that, we have to look at it and start giving an appropriate description. Okay, an appropriate description of the problem, whatever that is. Okay, within the realm of combative. So we people are typically looking for a prescription and they're not even accurately having a good description of what they're doing. Okay, the most precise description will lead you to the most appropriate prescription. Okay, it's like how to solve that. Now, it is 100% true that the martial arts world would still be doing katas if it wasn't for the Gracie family. And if you guys don't know what katas are, kata is that this martial arts movements, kind of scripted, where choreographed movements where you're not doing anything against a resisting opponent. Okay, that's totally true. If the Gracies hadn't come, we'd still be doing that bullshit. Um, However, we need to look at, there's a couple things of martial arts. Okay, every martial art has its limit. Every training method has its limit. Okay, and the goal of martial arts is to propagate the martial art, whatever it is. Okay. So typically what they do is they'll take their martial art, they'll look at a problem and they'll solve it within the context of how that martial art's trained. So essentially they're doing what they like to do or doing what they know how to do instead of exploring that they may not have the right answer or may not be the appropriate answer for the time. So for instance, um, we start looking at things like, people are getting into scuffles. Somebody starts hitting the other person and they grab them. And then there's like a push or a fall and people go to the ground. So there's like, oh, well, we got to learn how to fight on the ground. Definitely, maybe. Right. All right. So we'll back up a step. So now, the apparent solution to solving kind of like the issues of martial arts is that they want to introduce competitions, right? That's how they kind of propagate it. And when people get involved in competitions, as the martial arts become competitive, everyone gets really, really good at what they're doing. Okay, their fundamentals sharpen up, the skill level just skyrockets. Okay, and what happens is we get people maximizing their attributes. People start looking at, almost every martial art kind of has the same story of the grandmaster who was bullied and picked on. Then he learned how to fight, and he was a small, little, weak person, and then learned how to fight, and he was able to beat up all the big bullies, right? But then once we introduce competition, everybody starts maximizing those attributes. So they get really, really good at their technique as well as the other things like strength, speed, stamina, all those things, right? That's why you have like in the text for judo, you have these guys doing like 1,000 push-ups a day because they realize like being strong helps with judo. Now, the other thing that happens there is once you introduce competition is that everything starts to go drift away from the purpose of the martial art, which is real fighting, okay, or fighting within context. Now, the other thing is that when like that's kind of the general trend we're seeing with Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And it's hard to even talk about it in a way that's kind of making sense because then people will just jump on the idea of, hey, jiu-jitsu will get you killed on the streets, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous. So um, it's so let's circle back to tactics for a second here. Okay, if what is like the plan of the untrained fighter? Okay, every untrained fighter Okay, and we could even look at it from kids on the playground. It's like they have the same plan, which is really just pummel their opponent, beat them up and bludgeon them with their fists until they can no longer fight back effectively. That's really it. It's so universal, you don't have to teach it, and that's why it's called the universal fight plan. Okay, so that's the universal fight plan, which is pummel the opponent with your fists until they can no longer fight back effectively. Okay, now what is the world champion boxer's fight plan? Pummel you with their fists until they can no longer fight back effectively. Okay. So it's the same plan. They're just better at executing it because they're better technically and tactically. Does that and I hope that's making sense. The same thing with the Taekwondo plan, the Muay Thai plan, etc. Okay. Now, in actual grappling, though, in actual fighting, that we have grappling and striking because typically anytime you can do any range where you can do strikes and any range where you can grapple, the strikes are available to you. Okay, so a lot of times is when people get in the clinch, a lot of that shit goes out the window. Now in Muay Thai, they develop fighting around that where they're using the clinch, but they're also using other things like their knees and elbows and whatnot. Okay, then you have Lethway who took it up another step where they added headbutts. Okay, now when you're in range, like the elements are there's several elements of combatives. Okay, so you have grappling. Okay, you have grappling, you have strikes, you have weapons, and you have the environment. All right. So what happens is there's no environment where you're going to be so sanitized where there's nothing there that can be improvised as a weapon. Okay. Like even something as simple as a shoe, you can improvise that and use that as a weapon against your opponent. All right. The other thing is that life has walls. Okay. It's not an open space mat room where there's infinite room to run around, or you guys are going to reset in the middle, or something like that. You're going to get pushed up against a wall. I mean, they see that you see this all the time in street fights. Like all of a sudden, guys kind of find themselves in a wall, and whenever people start hearing that there's grappling involved, they automatically kind of revert to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and they start thinking, all right, well, we got to start fighting. We get contents of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's not exactly what's going on. I mean, most of the time when you have people getting taken down, it's not a takedown the same way you would see in a grappling match. A lot of times it's like this blasting fist and they kind of collide and then somebody loses balance or they trip over something. It's more of like a it's like a fall more of a fall down and a slip as opposed to or a push down as opposed to being a you know a situation where they're getting taken down. Okay. Um now so that's everything that's going on. Okay. Now, the other thing is that the other thing in the environment is that you have the tactical circumstances involved. Okay, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is kind of made in mind for the one-on-one, man-on-man fight where we made the general's agreement where no one's gonna jump in, no one's gonna bite each other's nose off, and it's gonna be just me and you, and until there's a winner. Okay, so no one's breaking it up, no one's jumping in, and that's where they kind of got this idea of where it's a very old school. They kind of call it like the Elio Gracie method, where you're gonna essentially keep your energy use as low as possible, kind of protect yourself, make the guy kind of what's called cooking himself. But basically, he's gonna tire himself out, make a mistake, slip into a joint lock, and you'll take something home with you. So that's kind of the broad as far as like where jujitsu fits in, or as far as in the street fight. Okay, it was still even though they were street fights, it was still kind of a challenge match in mind. Okay. Now, in the tactical scenario, there is always a time limit because help is on the way, whether it's the cops, whether it's friends. And just because help is not on the way for you doesn't mean it's not on the way for them. So you have to keep that in mind, like that there are time limits in real fights. I, I hate that people want to say like, oh, there's no time limit in a street fight. There is. It's imposed by the tactical circumstance, tactical situation, and you just don't know what it is. And so what that means is fighting in the clinch or fighting for grappling is that you have to be able to do it in two different ways. You have to be able to stop the person from taking you down if help is on the way for them, Or if help is on the way for you, then you use that to your advantage. And you also want to make sure that you're in a situation where someone else jumping in won't take advantage of you trying to run through kind of the typical standard jujitsu positional hierarchy. Okay. If you guys don't know, I'm going to be teaching a ground combatives course October 29th in Albuquerque, and I'm going to be covering a lot of this stuff. So, if you're interested, just hit up the POC's David Bowling, or shoot me an email at info@deedsofarms.com. So every system kind of shares that problem where they're solving the problems. They're looking to create a solution within the limits of their training methods, within a sanitized training environment. So, like, this is the BJJ answer to X, or the boxing answer to Y. And so when you start looking at it, it's like, what's the double leg takedown defense in boxing? Right? They don't have one, because that's not something they deal with. So they're gonna probably say some shit like, oh, uppercut the guy every time he puts his head down. And, like, we can clearly see, through the 30 years or so of MMA, that that's not, you got to learn how to grapple. Okay. Now, let's say somebody here, like, now he's like, all right, let me learn how to grapple. I learned some striking. Now you got a guy who doesn't know striking, but only knows how to grapple. So his plan is to basically the old school Hoist Gracie plan, which is basically close the distance, right? Achieve a clinch, take the guy down, work into a dominant position. All right. Um, then you get a guy like Chuck Liddell, who can strike and can use his wrestling in a defensive manner, where it's like everybody who has that plan, he's basically going to tire them out through trying to work through the takedown, making sure he can stand up and then hit you in the face really hard, right? The sprawl and brawl method. Okay. So that makes it to where, you can have the world's greatest rock, but that guy has paper. So you start thinking about it in terms of, this is the strategy and the plan, or the tactics, as far as winning the fight goes. Okay. Um, so I wouldn't say that there isn't a specific system that teaches about using martial arts within a tactical sense. I think a lot of them, more or less, like, their goal is to take a self motivated person, make that person a customer within that martial art, propagate that martial art, and then kind of keep the cycle going. Um, and I know a lot of more MMA gyms are starting to come around. Like, I've been talking to guys like Cole Miller. We have Chet's coaches in the Combative Association group. If you guys are not in the group, shoot me an email. I'll make sure you guys get in. When I start thinking about, like, what stylistically I would be worried about dealing with, I would say probably like a high school wrestler. That'd probably be the hardest type of person to fight, because they're just so they can grapple, and they're very, very gritty. But other than that, an extremely athletic person. I think those are kind of the scariest person that to encounter on the street. Even crude methods of fighting are incredibly effective. Like, we can't, like, I'm not talking about like the dirty fighting techniques, not your Detroit dust stuff where they're gonna eye poke, or grab your genitals, or anything kind of crazy like that. But just things like, just weird stuff that people do, just while sprawling, just like smash you into a wall, grab your head and hit you. Like, those things can be effective. They have a limit to their effect, because if you know how to move, then you're typically going to win. But if you're live sparring, white belts, new beginners, and grappling competitions, it's a lot like fighting that kind of person. So with that in mind, I think the art that kind of gives you the best ROI is going to be Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I understand that it's incredibly biased, but I say that kind of like, you have to look at it. When I go into a jiu-jitsu gym, the first thing I do is I look at their walls. Is the wall padding 6 feet high? Because if the wall padding 6 feet high, then I'm gonna be like, okay, they're doing wall work. They're doing things within context. If I can get like a fighting jujitsu, like a MMA style jujitsu, because in MMA they have time limits too, so the guys, they work pretty hard. So that's typically where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to something like a MMA and fitness. So that's probably if I had to recommend one, that is probably gonna be where you're gonna get your best ROI. So that is probably where you should go. But I hope all of that is what kind of sticks in lingers in your mind more as opposed to like, hey, just go do this because I'm telling you to do this, but with this in mind, remembering that that has limits. Okay. So guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Hit the like button. We got 4 people watching and 2 likes. So, you know, likes are free, guys. They don't cost you nothing. So it helps me out, it helps you guys out. So that way we can keep getting this wonderful free content. So, all right. So BJJ is just pulling guard. Yeah, that's what they say. It'll get you killed in the streets, is what they say. So, as a test of pure athletic skill between two combats, MMA, as it was envisioned, the Valley to the old school is pretty hard to beat. Yeah, agreed, agreed. So, yeah, the weapons does complicate things because weapons, when you start like I hate the terms weapon based grappling because a lot of times what you're going to see is people kind of doing blue gun jujitsu where they're just going to be wrestling over an inert gun and they're going to be just kind of grappling over it. So like I kind of took a little bit of slack for this, but like I one of the training methods I like to use is Muay Thai neck wrestling with knee strikes. I like to do that because what happens is when people have the threat of the knee strike in play, it changes the way their posture is, or I should say, it corrects it. Because if all they're worried about is the grapple, a lot of times they're going to be hunched over and bent over and stuff like that, and that could set you up for a really bad knee strike. And people, or even just somebody coming from left field and kicking in your face really hard. So I think you need to be striking because that is part of the game. All right. Um, you don't see guys over 40 taking up wrestling where you will see them taking up BJJ and even compete. Yeah, you're not going to see older guys doing wrestling because wrestling is just a grind. It is so damn hard. And like, you got to think about it. Like the guy in the jujitsu school, he is, you know, jujitsu, the best thing about it is I think it empowers entrepreneurship, right? Like you've got jujitsu. Like I think that's part of why it's been able to blow up because a lot of it's private business. So they've been able to correct things, make things better, improve the quality, improve the way they train. And so, they need to keep you as a customer. So what happens is they treat you really nice. And it's a very intimate martial art. You're grappling people. So typically everybody's very clean, everybody's very nice, very welcoming and friendly. So it's a wonderful, wonderful environment for those reasons. But wrestling, I mean, most of the time the guys who are wrestling there, the coaches are kind of stay sponsored guys. So what happens is like their whole job is to like take these 15-year-old kids and just smash the shit out of them until they get them ready for a wrestling tournament. So it's it's definitely a contrast of coaching within wrestling and jiu-jitsu. All right. So a mix of BJJ and Muay Thai would be a good place. And to get back into martial arts, I have a background in Goji Ryu, karate, some Taekwondo, and Judo. Yeah, I mean, I think you do some kind of MMA style of jujitsu, kind of like the old Vale Tudo style. Like there was a old fight of Marilla Bustamante. He fought Matt Linlin, and Matt Linlin is a Greco-Roman silver medalist. But like when they did the fight, he had to tap him twice, number one. But the second thing is like he got all the takedowns in that fight because all the takedowns that he had developed were set up. He set up his clinching for with strikes. So everything was in combination. So he like left, like jab, jab, cross, jump into the clinch. So then work the fence really good. So I like wall work a lot. I'm one of those people. It's like I embrace the old Chris Howder rule: if it's matted, it's in play. So I like jujitsu with wall work. I like the knee strikes. I like headbutts. I like all of that shit. So I like to mix it up as much as possible. And yeah, I mean, when I was running my uh, you know program over here, I mean, we'd incorporate firearm, our dummy guns and play the game. So anything that lets you the more open the rule set, the better. So I hope that answers it. So man, yeah, I mean, Alberta, I want to say, man, Alberta's got some really good they've got some really good jujitsu up in Canada. Some very, very, very quality guys up there. Very sport heavy in terms of the grappling game. Like you kind of see the influence of the sport jujitsu because for some reason everybody's really focused on that. Like if you look at as a business, right? If you look at what people are searching for, they typically look for self defense, right? But for some reason, it's like they're looking at what's going on within the jujitsu world, and they're really concerned with the guys winning medals. So I think there's some kind of, um, like self image issues there. So they want to be kind of champions too, and I think it's kind of like the best evaluation we have, because it's like everybody's kind of worried about taking each other's students. So um, yeah, so it's like you'll see the influence, like you'll see 3 foot walls, and you'll see, you know, uh, guys that are like they're stopping when they get to the corner of the end of the mat, stuff like that. So yeah, but still, like if you have a very sharp competitive jujitsu, a lot of times all you need to do is reprioritize what it is you're focused on to get familiar with the weapons based grappling. Busta trained him to hold on. Yep, yeah, that's it, yeah. Oh, man, yeah, Paul Harris, Palhares is, Rousimar Palhares is, like, the guy who rips everybody's legs off, yeah, I mean, so his nickname is Toquinho, which is and everybody it's tree stump, and everybody thinks it's because, like, he's really strong and short, but they called him that because he's stupid, and so I have some Brazilian friends, so yeah, so I like, tell me like, yeah, he's just stupid, so they just call him Toquinho, like tree stump. So yeah, that's a pretty funny story about that. And another thing, funny story about Paul Addis was Caio Terra bet like his life savings on him when he came in to the UFC because nobody knew who he was, and Caio Terra had trained with him in Brazil. So Caio Terra like basically put the house on that dude, and like all of a sudden like he rolls he rolls up back to Cesar Gracie Academy, and he's got like this fly ass Mercedes. And it was like, yeah, I guess the guy, the bookie, he didn't have all the money to pay, so he just gave Kyle his car. And so, yeah, that dude, man, he's a safe bet. So, all right, guys, I'm feeling those pre-workout jitters. So, man, we're at 28 minutes here. So, guys, please make sure you guys are liking, you're subscribing. It really really means a lot to me, and it's going to help me out. And it costs you nothing. If you guys enjoy this, please let me know in the comments. Yeah, man, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you all for tuning in. And make sure you guys share this. If you guys feel like I know this is a common question, like for Fletch and whatnot. So, like, if you guys got friends that want it, that have these kind of questions, just shoot them this video. So, even give them the timestamp of like, yeah, this is when he says MMA. So, all right, guys, take care.